Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. And I'm hoping you all are all nice and charged after that cup of chai or coffee or whatever your take was, and hoping to see the hall fill up very quickly. Thank you, NASSCOM, for having us here. Looking forward to this session with these two illustrious gentlemen. And to kick this off, if you've noticed, I thought we had a very interesting subject that NASSCOM assigned to us. GCC is getting ready to influence the right side of the balance sheet. For the non-accountants, maybe you Googled it a bit very quickly, but essentially it's about creating true assets and adding true value. As has been the theme through the conclave and all of the sessions and stalls that you all have been busy at outside, GCCs, or the Global Capability Centers, have come a long, long way. I mean, we've been associated, and year after year, when we look at how the theme has evolved, it is fascinating to look at the difference that GCCs are making. As may be argued, and many of you probably don't call them global capability centers, but truly are a seamless extension of your parent organization. And that's the nature of value that really GCCs are delivering to the organization, the assets that you're building, and what really sits on that right side influencing true shareholder value. The industry, and I'd like to believe GCCs are an industry of their own because of the many different interesting nuances that the model presents, but fascinating to see that evolution. We've come a long way from what typically is on the left side and all of the cost elements to actually creating assets, building IP, and driving significant impact to the top line. Steering the strategy for the global organization, having a true voice at that top table, no longer just a seat at the top table, but how are you influencing and shaping where the global organization is headed? So I'm sure you will see a lot of common themes from what we've spoken of and what you've heard through the day. And yet another session which actually talks about doing a little more analysis on what sits on this right side. How are GCCs actually influencing the right side, driving value, and making a difference? And on that note, while you've of course heard the introductions, I was chatting with Rajesh and Ankur, and very interesting aspects that will come through. Ankur represents Lowe's, which is really considered quite the gold standard in terms of what they've accomplished as a global capability center. They are among that handful that sit in the top quadrant of driving value and doing things very, very differently in a truly globally empowered capacity. We will also hear from Rajesh talk about what Mastercard has set up in its tech hub. And what I thought was fascinating, and I'm sure Rajesh will allude to it, is with 25% of their global workforce, they're actually driving the culture of Mastercard from here. And think of that aspect of it. If you really look at what culture means to an organization and indirectly to influence that right side, that's the kind of change that Rajesh and his team out of Pune are actually driving. So on that note, and to get us started, let me, and I'm going to ask both of you, for your perspective on, what did you make of this topic, influencing the right side of the balance sheet, and how are you doing it in your own ways?
Yeah. So I'll go first. And thank you, NASSCOM, and thank you, Shalini, for having us over here. See, GCC in my mind does three types of jobs. So one, which we already talked about, impacting the bottom line, which is like cost arbitrage, doing some of the work which can optimize the expense side of the balance sheet. But then there is two more things which GCC does. The second is creating a top line impact or revenue impact in the existing business lines. So for example, for Lowe's, Lowe's.com, search, personalization, which is increasing the conversion and then hence increasing the top line. But the third line, which is very important, and we have figured it out, and a lot of us, we have to still figure it out, is how can we add a new revenue stream to the business? We all know that the directive is coming from the parent company about this thing needs to be improved or this thing needs to be changed. But can you drive something which parent organization have not thought about it? And you start from India or from your GCC center and then take it to a place where parent organization is forced to think beyond what they are doing. So I think these three things, second and third, are very, very important for GCC organizations to understand it's not just about surviving, but it's also about thriving and creating value for the organization.
Fantastic, and I'm sure we'll refer to it because There are GCCs who've actually accomplished that beside, I mean, like you've just called out, and actually even gone to service third party based on assets that they've created here and now looking to monetize. So thanks for that, Ankur. Rajesh.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us over here. Now, at the outset, I think it's very important to understand the evolution of GCCs. Right? A lot of them started as cost arbitrage centers, and a lot of them since have moved to becoming value-creating centers. And I dare say, some of them are today at the cusp of delivering innovation and technology outcomes for their parent organizations. Now, this has significantly changed the perception of GCCs, both within the parent organization and within the external ecosystem. In fact, I recently read a report which stated that GCCs in India by the year 2026 will generate revenues to the tune of anything between 60 and $85 billion.
Yeah.
Now, that is a significant number which goes to your right side. That's straight away proof of the pudding, if you may. Now, in my mind, that's an outcome metric. How do you get there? By influencing your customer, by providing customer impact. Now, you can give customer impact through many ways. But in my mind, there are three key things, what I'd like to call the 3E framework, if you may, that helps define customer outcomes. First, it's about empowering people. You need to have an empowered team, and this goes back to the culture question that you're asking me, culture statement you made. You need to empower your people because then they will deliver outcomes which have the customer at the heart of everything. Second is enhanced processes. Like Ankur pointed out, a lot of GCCs today have predefined processes sent to them by their global organization. But I personally believe these need to be tweaked for local nuances or for nuances that are particular to the market that you service. So that's what I mean by enhanced processes. The third is the ecosystem connect. Depending on the market you service, there necessarily needs to be a connect with the various stakeholders in that ecosystem. And the culmination of these three things will definitely help you, one, reduce your go-to-market time, and two, provide localized solutions that the customer wants, therefore driving customer impact, which in turn impacts your the revenue numbers. And let me try illustrating this with an example from Mastercard. Now, our R&D team is called Foundry, and very recently, we had a product, a digital product, the global product, that was localized for the farmers of Andhra Pradesh. And you might wonder what's Mastercard doing with farmers, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, this product was localized, and in partnership with the government of Andhra Pradesh, we took it to the market. What this essentially did was digitize the entire payments value chain across the agri supply chain, providing seamless, safe, and secure payment options, not just to the farmers, the buyers, the middlemen, and agent, thereby driving significant end consumer value, if I may say that.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And that brings me, we touched upon empowerment, enhanced processes, ecosystem, and clearly the industry has come a long, long way. Sitting amongst us are those who've had and established centers here for 2 decades and maybe more. And then there is an equally large number who in the last 2-3 years have come and set up shop and grown. And with that mixed bag of, shapes and sizes and tenure of GCC, when we talk of things like empowerment, we talk of strategic alignment and value to the parent, I'm curious as to what do you think is really impacting that ability to influence? Your 2 words, when you look at someone coming to set up a center, how are you influencing the parent organization? What does it take to really become that empowered GCC as opposed to a cost delivery center? So what do you think impacts that ability to influence?
I think that's a great question. Now, I really wish I had a silver bullet that could tell you that this is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Right? You spoke about cost arbitrage, you talk about how else to influence. I think it's got to be a mix, a balance of a lot of things. One, definitely you need to deliver on your cost numbers, and any person who's in business will tell you this, right? You obviously need to be aligned with what your head office wants. But at the end of the day, strategy gets driven there. But in my mind, if I were to lay emphasis on something, that would be around governance and empowerment, right, within the GCC. Because I believe a well-governed and well-empowered GCC can deliver on three things that will give you credibility. And credibility ultimately leads to influence within the organization. Now, what are those three things? First one, it helps you grow and lead in the right areas. Having a strong local leadership helps you take decisions that are particular to that market. Therefore, it provides you with added growth. And let me give you a case in point from Mastercard. Over the last 10 years, we've grown 20x. And this, I believe, is purely because of the kind of leaders that we've invested in. If you look at our gender diversity, it's gone from 17%, we are right now at about 33%. A good number. We are improving, but we can definitely do better. But it definitely is much better than 17%. So that's that's how you can lead. The second one is about providing you with a local connect, which I spoke about in my previous answer as well. And I spoke about the example with the government of Andhra Pradesh. We have a similar product which we further nuanced and gave to the government, to the farmers, called Farm Pass, which we've implemented in the state of Tamil Nadu around Ooty. Right? And this has touched close to, today as we speak, close to 100 million farmers have been touched by this. And the third and most important thing I believe good governance and empowerment brings, it fosters a culture of innovation. Right? Because I think, personally, for GCCs to make the next big leap, you need to be at the cutting edge of innovation. Now, how do I measure innovation?
I'll come to that in a minute, Rajesh. I'm going to get you to hold on to that thought. Yeah. Because, I'm looking at two very contrasting organizations. You have the happy situation of a customer base here that can directly influence some of what you do and feed into that process. And here we have Lowe's, who is quite far off from where their actual customer base is and still is a very globally empowered center. So Ankur, would love to hear your thoughts on what's the secret to getting that empowerment.
See, in the beginning, whenever you are setting up the GCC center, you have to have some sort of sponsorship from US.
Of course.
We are US company,
yeah.
So CIO is our sponsor. But sponsorship cannot be dependent on one particular person or a role.
Absolutely.
In next coming years or 2-3 years, you have to create a sponsorship at various CXO levels. So I'll give you an example. So Lowe's has 1,800 stores in the United States. Every store probably has 60 to 80 checkout counters. Half of them will be self-checkout and half of them will be cashier-led checkout. We started developing our self-checkout in Lowe's India. Hardware, software, middleware, device management, everything, 100% was developed over here. And then we deployed that into our stores in US. Let's look at the results. 300 stores did not have self-checkout, and when we built our homegrown self-checkout, which is 1/5 of the cost of vendor self-checkout, 5 times more stable, much better user interface. What happened is, when we deployed those things and we compare with the rest of the stores, which has the vendor checkout, our 20% transactions. So earlier, vendor 1 was doing 40%. These self-checkout are doing 60% transaction, which means I saved a lot of people cost, and those people have started focusing on selling to the customer and not doing the tasking.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, the self-checkout has rolled out to almost 2/3 of the chain, and look at the impact. During COVID, company grew from $70 billion to approximately $97 billion, the last year numbers. We did not increase a single dollar in store payroll, which is the biggest payroll and biggest cost for a retailer. And customer satisfaction improves much higher. We see these self-checkout doing more transactions and bigger order value than the previous one. So, see, whether you are working for US or having a local market, as long as you understand the business domain where you operate, you understand the technology, and you know what is the right problem and how to solve it, you can achieve.
Superb. And clearly what we are seeing is a good combination of a top-down mandate, along with, of course, bottoms-up, the impact that you're creating and delivering from here, and that's really getting you that voice at that top table, so to speak. And I know I paused you on that previous point, but I'm going to come back to it right now to say, how are you measuring success? The definition and the measures of success have evolved as this industry has evolved. So what started with cost savings, becoming harder, but of course more and more interesting on how you measure success in today's environment. So maybe you want to continue on that, and then Rajesh could add.
Yeah, so see, a lot of people talk about India GCC and what is your success parameter. In Lowe's, we generally don't talk about India GCC and India success parameter because 95% of the roles in Lowe's India is global roles. What I mean by global role is somebody who is managing, let's say, self-checkout, they're managing it globally. Somebody who is managing search, they're managing it globally.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, our enterprise architecture, vice president is based out of India. He manages or controls whether it is going to be build versus buy, if we are going to buy, what we are going to buy, if we are going to build, which technology we are going to use across globes. Similarly, our omni-channel platform, data platform, the vice president sits over here and makes the decision for global Lowe's. So when you have global roles, you don't measure the success by India GCC, we measure the success. Are we delivering on the capability? If search conversion has to improve 20 basis point, is it improving? And it is improving globally. So it shouldn't be like India success. So very little we measure success as come to India. It's just probably we are saying that, hey, we need to manage within the certain attrition levels or certain like budget. Apart from that, it's all by capability.
So global outcome-based KPIs,
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
Yes, Rajesh, you want to add to that?
Yep, slightly different answer though. I mean, traditionally, if you would ask me, I would have said number of incidents, quick turnaround time, number of tats, how has BizOps done? But I come from a business background. I'm not really a techie. So the way I look at this is on two fronts. First is, how do we drive culture out of the tech hubs? And like you pointed out, we have close to 25% of our global workforce sitting out of these tech hubs. And in my mind, they are the carriers of the culture of the organization. Now, how do we empower them? And how do we measure? Well, as a leader, I'd love to believe I've empowered them. I guess all of us do. But like they say, you need to know when the rubber hits the road. So the way we do this is we have specific measurable outcomes when it comes to our employee experience. And we do an internal benchmarking, what we call employee experience survey. And we also have external benchmarks like the Great Places to Work or the Zinno Awards. And I'm extremely proud to say that year on year, our internal employee experience scores have scored us extremely high on parameters like culture, innovation. And when I say extremely high, I mean it as a function or as against the rest of Mastercard globally.
Got it.
So much so that we've had folks from global come and ask us, how do you sustain this level of energy? So for me, that's one metric of success in the organization, of how the GCC operates.
Yeah.
The second one is around innovation. And I know, again, that's a loosely used word. Again, for somebody who comes from a business background, I like to have a metric which helps me measure what the outcome is to make it tangible. So I'd like to use patents as a surrogate to measure the patents that get driven out of India. And I can tell you, with a lot of pride, that a majority of the patents that get filed globally by Mastercard have at least one contributor from India. I mean, people who understand the patent concept understand that there'll be multiple owners to the patent. So at least one contributor is there from India. And for me, these two together defines the success of what I'd like to call the tech hub and not a GCC.
Thank you. Great examples. The second one, I couldn't help allude to our opening session this morning where Manu spoke of how what Daimler has accomplished is fingerprints on every part of what goes into the automobile and the new operating system. And clearly, that's a great measure of success. The fascinating one was on HR, because quite often we hear of GCCs aligning to HQ. To say you walk into the GCC, walk into any office, we look and feel the same. But I think this is a great story because GCCs today have such a significant size of the population that you are in a great position to influence culture, actually. So I love that thought because as you look at this right side of the balance sheet, you really want to be in that steering seat to drive some of this. In fact, I'm going to move to another area, and technology has been at the core of what's driven the change. In fact, the last 3 years, tech has really taken GCCs to another level. When you look at this tech adoption and you look at GCCs, I'd like to say increasingly becoming nerve centers of a global business services model. How do you see that? I mean, what is that going to mean for you in terms of imagine this as the tech nerve center for the global organization?
Yeah, I'll take it one level up.
Yeah.
So what we do as part of Lowe's, and I'll take an example too. So for example, you have global merchandising team, which is making a decision about assortment, and then doing item setup, and then vendor setup. So we have the team on the business side, which is sitting over here, and then they are working next to tech team, build those technology. And then you have the planogram team, again goes to the business side, which decides how, and you will have the item set up in your stores. Then you have field merchandising team, which is going and scanning those planograms and making changes to it. Then again, you have a team which is doing data and analytics.
Yeah.
If you can build the entire ecosystem, sitting on the same floor in Bangalore Manita office, it makes it so much easier to deliver the impact to the parent organization, and then you become the nerve center for the organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, it's not without reason we have seen as many tech centers spring in the country just now, because your ability to look at that business value chain end to end just goes up tremendously. Rajesh, your thoughts?
Okay. So let me look at it from an internal lens and from an external lens. So the answer to your question is an emphatic yes.
Yeah.
I definitely think India is going to be the nerve center for tech hubs. And why do I say this? One, like you said, look at the number of GCCs we have in India today. GCCs, tech hubs, call them what you may. Upwards of 1,800. It's a significant number. Now, overlay this with things like the size of the India market. Right? We are poised to become the third largest economy in the world. Yeah, third largest economy in the world by 2030. That's a significant market. Again, you'll see me wear my business hat and talk about market size here. Second point on that one. If you were to look at consumer spend in India, and there was this recent report by the World Economic Forum, which said the consumer spends will increase from the current $1.5 trillion to $6 trillion, quadruple by 2030. I mean, any company that's worth its salt will tell you that they want to be in India. And the third thing for me is about the startup ecosystem. We have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. I mean, more than 100 plus unicorns. That is a significant number. What this means is that there are significant investments in technology in India, supported by the government, the policies, a robust policy framework. So all this put together makes it a perfect recipe to become a tech nerve center.
Absolutely. And in fact, like we all know, India is on a mission to bring the next 500 into the country. We're very well on that agenda and kind of ready to hit that objective. We actually have a center, one in every 10 days almost, kind of coming here and setting up. So clearly, I couldn't agree more in terms of where we are headed, and technology is going to be at the core. Imagine the India shining story with GCCs as these tech nerve centers driving and steering global organizations into the future. I think it's super powerful. As we bring this to a wrap, I just had one last question, and for the industry listening in, going back to our topic of influencing the right side of the balance sheet, your top 3 words on what are those imperatives, what is the take to get to drive and influence that right side of the balance sheet? What are those 3 absolute imperatives, and in brief?
Okay. So I'll say first is going to be building the best talent team.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of Lowe's. 4 years back, we were around 15 leaders in Lowe's India. Today, we sit at 130. 95% of them global responsibilities have come in from startup, other GCCs, local players like Flipkart and Mintras of the world and Geos of the world, building the best talent team. I have a person in my team who has spent few years in Walmart, few years in Target, few years in Amazon. You need to have those people. Second is, and my boss told me some 10 years back that don't go and ask for work. So if I go and ask for work, you'll probably get the work which I don't want to do it. So be ready or deliver the impactful work, whatever is being given to you, and be ready to take on whenever something is given to you, and do it so well that next time any important strategic work comes, it will be always given to you. And third, what I say is look around the corners. What I mean by that is there are going to be things which your HQ is not even thinking about it, and you pick on those things and make it great out of it. I'll give you a small example of it. We call it Lowe's One Roof Media Network. This is the media network which started in India, business, technology, everything with one person, and the team grew to 25 people over a year. It's the fastest growing media network in the entire world for 3 years. Has grown 25 times in 3 years, and we believe that is going to continue to grow and bring significant amount of impact on the right side of the balance sheet for Lowe's.
Thank you.
Ankur. Okay, top three in my mind would be, first one is a no-brainer, hire the right talent. So I think talent is what makes you people, is what makes your organization what it is. The second one, again, no-brainer given what I've been talking all this while, is drive a culture of empowerment. It's not enough to hire the right folks, make sure they stay with you, and the only way you can do this is by empowering them. And the third one, I'd like to spend some time on this one, is drive innovation, because that's the only way you're going to go up the value chain. Because there are always going to be order takers. And I can tell you for a fact that when you have your names of your colleagues up there on the board which says, okay, patent holder, the perception of your organization within the mothership, the way people look at your team is going to be very, very different. So these would be my top three, Shalini.
Thank you. And I see a lot of commonality. You're kind of saying the same thing. And for, of course, the industry listening in, we've not heard enough of the talent criticality yet, but clearly significant. As you move up the value curve, do you have leaders who are ready to take on those empowered roles, truly play global roles? It's going to be a significant need of the hour, not just delivery talent, but leadership talent. So clearly that's up there. We've spoken about empowerment quite a lot through this conversation. Empowerment in terms of how your global parent looks at you and how you prove to be worthy of that empowerment, both of it coming together very nicely. Innovation, without which I think we're going to all be challenged, but I think the good part is it's very well understood, looking ahead of the curve, thinking of three new things, whether it's revenue streams you talked of, whether it's driving impact in a very different way. I think all of that is where we are all headed to. So with that, I think I'd like to bring this to a wrap. And for all of you, we've heard these themes, and I'm sure you'll hear more of it through the rest of today and tomorrow. But through these sessions, I find it fascinating to hear from different industries, stories that come out, really bringing this alive in terms of what the industry is doing and how they're driving it. So with that, I'd kind of bring this to a wrap. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASScom YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.